All right, friends, we have several clips to get through here, including several which are back-to-back and pertain to a series of moments during the State of the Union address, before and after, involving two very unlikely protagonists, President Joseph Biden and Marjorie Taylor Greene, the MAGA cultist and Republican Congresswoman. I want to play this short clip here. It's about 7 seconds long as the president is making his way into Congress. This is him coming face to face with MTG.
Mr. President, look over here. Mr. President.
Again, that whoa. Believe me, I get it. I imagine that's how most people react when they see Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, what she was doing was trying to hand the president a button. Okay, so the button refers to Laken Riley, a woman who is allegedly murdered by an undocumented immigrant. The Republican Party is weaponizing this woman's death as a way to demonize migrants across this country, undocumented or otherwise, even though statistically speaking, they commit far fewer crimes than natural-born citizens. And her challenge, effectively, to the president was, hey, take this button and say her name. That was the goal. This is the exchange somebody recorded. It may have been MTG herself, of her actually addressing the president.
I know how to say the name.
Laken Riley. Say your name, Mr. President.
Say her name, Mr. President. And by the way, note that Marjorie Taylor Greene talks a lot of smack about Joe Biden all the time. It's always President Trump and Joe Biden, Joe Biden. But when face to face with the man, she does the polite thing and refers to him by his title, Mr. President. So she hands Biden the button. Biden accepts the button, okay? He didn't have to address her. He could have ignored her. Instead, he went up, looked her dead in the face, engaged with her while cameras were rolling, showing no fear whatsoever. He accepts the button. He says he knows how to say her name. And then during the speech, when they challenge him to do that, he ad-libs, he picks up the button, and he says her name, and he acknowledges her death. He acknowledges the horror of her death for her family, expresses empathy for them on live TV, but then refuses to demonize migrants in this country, including undocumented migrants. Though I will say the president did use a very outdated term, illegal, to refer to migrants and undocumented migrants, a very boomer phrase from the president with which many Democrats took issue with, understandably so. But the overall sentiment was, listen, you think you're going to get me on this. You think this is a gotcha. You don't think that I have the fortitude to address this woman's tragic death. I will do it, and I will not allow you to shape the narrative. I will show courage by addressing it, and then I'll say that this is not reflective of migrants in this country, no matter how much you Republicans want to make it that way. Representative Jamie Raskin, as Luke Beasley pointed out that with all of that MAGA paraphernalia, she violated the rules of the House. MTG in direct violation of the rules of the House by wearing campaign insignia on the House floor. Wow. Hard to believe, right? That Marjorie Taylor Greene would violate the rules of the House. This is what she had to say in the aftermath about that.
But here's what offended me. Here's what I found to be outrageous is Sergeant at Arms came up and told me that I needed to take the hat off. And I said, I'm not taking the hat off. I refuse to take it off. And he said, well, it's decorum. I said, I certainly understand. You do what you need to do. I'll pay a fine. I'll do whatever, a warning, whatever there is. But I'm not taking the hat off.
Imagine how much she'd be upset if the shoe was on the other foot. And again, that's really important there. So she is not just a MAGA cultist. She is a sitting Republican congresswoman. And she is flouting the rules. She's violating decorum. She's done it again and again and again with her heckling, although she was noticeably less heckly than in 2023, likely because President Biden was able to skillfully use the heckling against Republicans last time around. But with all that in mind, this is what the Fox Propaganda Network had to say when it comes to decorum.
Compare what you saw when you were working for President Trump versus what we saw last night.
So interestingly, State of the Unions right before an election tend to be more campaign focused, but in a way that is hidden and muted. Not last night, 13 mentions of Trump, though not his name. Compare that to 2020. President Trump there was this beautiful moment where there was this military mom, her 2 children. He surprised that mom with the bringing home of her husband from overseas. He was deployed overseas. It was beautiful. It was unifying. He unified the country in 2020. What a difference. Who do you want to be president next time around? The angry, divisive guy last night, or the guy who tried to unify the country in an election?
Except that didn't happen. Donald Trump did not divide or unite the country in 2017. He didn't unite the country in 2018. He didn't unite the country in 2020 or 2019 or in 2020. None of the years in which Trump was president did he ever unite the country. He was historically divisive even then. He was wildly unpopular. He was never a popular president. So this is Kayleigh McEnany, another MAGA cultist engaging in revisionist history. Donald Trump has always been divisive. He's always insulted blue cities, blue states, Democrats, et cetera, and so forth. But they're rewriting history. Donald Trump, the great unifier, when he refers to the Democratic Party as the party of communists, thugs, pedophiles, and groomers. That's really unifying language there. By the way, with no caveats whatsoever, even though President Biden gives caveat after caveat after caveat about how that's not all the Republican Party. It's just MAGA. MAGA is just an extreme fringe. Most Republicans I respect and get along with, et cetera, and so forth. Donald Trump doesn't say stuff like that. This is that double standard, the asymmetry of expectation, where Republicans and conservatives and MAGA try to grade themselves on a curve. We must ruthlessly, relentlessly, and harshly and consistently reject that and point out their lies. They are the least civil, the least decent political movement in terms of decorum by far. Democrats are just objectively far better. Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic Conference in the House of Representatives, made the case pointing that out.
And we're just asking our Republican colleagues to stop the political stunts. That was an embarrassment last night. A complete embarrassment. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's basically running the House Republican Conference, shows up in campaign paraphernalia. And then these people want to lecture Joe Biden because he delivered a strong and forceful speech that made them uncomfortable because he exposed their lies and shamelessness. We have one message for extreme MAGA Republicans who want to lecture us about decorum. Get lost. You're a joke. Exhibit A, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Exhibit B, George Santos.
Folks, that is the bare minimum. That sort of like aggressive posture, that sort of blunt, harsh rhetoric, that sort of like, well, maybe you have a point. No, get lost. You're wrong. You're just objectively wrong, and point it out. I love that. That's the sort of energy at a bare minimum that you and I and everybody else who are not insane MAGA cultists need to bring to this. If you want to talk about civility politics and decorum and uniting the country, then you all need to start embodying that. You should be telling Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene to stop talking about Democrats, women, and Muslims and members of minority groups, the LGBTQ community, even they're critics in general. Stop using divisive language, stop insulting people, stop demonizing and belittling people, start engaging with decorum, and then you can start expecting decorum in return. So great on Hakeem Jeffries by pointing out the hypocrisy. But let me know what you think in the comments.